Today our story begins with showing the most ordinary life of a guy who says that he is too tired. Opening the door of his house, he only thought about the fact that today was too hard a day. Life is hard for him because of his boss and colleagues at work who consider him a complete loser. But everything can't be that bad. Even in the life of such a complete loser, there must be something good. Opening the door, he asks if she's come. To his surprise, an incredibly beautiful blonde meets him and says that, of course, she has come. The best moment of the whole day is meeting Bomb, who lives in the next apartment. God, she is beautiful as always. The girl came today after training, so she was simply in excellent athletic shape. He could not believe that such a girl could even communicate with him. Suddenly, the lady began to look at him strangely, and our boy thought that she noticed how lovingly he looked at her. Afterwards, she made an expression on her face as if the girl was offended by something, but the main character did not understand anything. It didn't matter to the boy. The girl, of course, had a simply terrible character, but for that, she looked more beautiful than many models from magazine covers. Each of them stood near the entrance to their apartment, but only the boy looked in her direction for too long. Now the blonde's gaze became angry. The girl directly decided to say why the hell he was constantly looking at her. Maybe he had something to tell. Finding himself in such an awkward situation, the main character simply asked for forgiveness, to which the blonde warned him not to look at her again. She's really tired of this idiot. Every day when they return home, he constantly looks at her as if she were some kind of monument. And here the main character already felt offended because the lady called him a moron. Why immediately swear yes, he looked in her direction, but it's not his fault that she is so beautiful. In short, the girl decided to give a final warning. If the boy did not stop, the blonde would sue him. After that, the door slammed and we are shown the main character lying alone on the bed in his room, thinking how beautiful the girl was. It turns out that our boy has never entered into relationships with girls, and when he sees dice, he immediately wants to play Monopoly. There was just a competition being held in the next room, and he wondered what game would be there today. But for some reason, they started doing sports dancing. When suddenly he heard a strange sound of a blow and thought that a real fight had started there. Now the main character was thinking what to do in such a situation, but we all understand perfectly well that there is no fight there. But the blonde was now just playing Magic Monopoly and asked Appa to use another powerful spell. Of course, Appa agrees to fulfill her request, and the next spell is not long in coming, after which it became even more fun to continue playing Monopoly. Still, he notices that sports dancing is useful, now that when he casts spells on her, not as much damage passed through her as before. And while the guys were playing Monopoly in the next room, our lonely protagonist just started playing board games with himself, thinking that Bomb had a cool Monopoly set. Appa made a very serious expression on his face and asked the girl if he should use a couple more spells to make the game even more interesting. To which he received an answer from the blonde that he should not ask but get down to business as soon as possible. But Appa decides to joke a little and cast other spells, saying that he needs to ask directly in order to cast spells because Bum never says what he really wants. After another question whether the girl wanted him to use a super powerful spell on her, the blonde asked why he was mocking her so much because he himself knew that she wanted a spell. After she directly said this, Appa would only be happy to show the most powerful spell in her arsenal. When the boy finally used this spell, the girl simply could not fight normally, but still asked Appa to continue using the spell. As a result, it turns out that Appa is much stronger than this lady, and the blonde will not be able to defeat him so easily. Soon their battle will end. Well, if so. Now he decides to quickly use his most powerful magic before she loses all her strength. After all, he wanted to have fun while fighting with her. Of course, the blonde agreed. Then it became much more difficult for the girl to fight against him, because he turns out to be simply an excellent magician. The lady simply asked how good of an opponent she was, and Appa responded by saying that he enjoyed fighting against her. But he just couldn't understand the reason why she became like this. Was it really all because of the training she goes to? After which the boy asked the girl to fight against him face to face, then the battle would definitely become much more interesting. Meanwhile, the main character was actively playing Monopoly with himself and thinking how much he envied that guy, because he also wanted to find an excellent opponent. Afterwards, the girl simply asked Appa not to stop fighting until she completely lost all her strength. In such cases, let the blonde not complain later that she will have many wounds. But it seems that the blonde only likes the moment in which the battle took place. Still, she decides to warn him that soon she will completely run out of strength. Appa also turns out to be not as strong as it seemed at first glance. Soon he will run out of strength too. Finally, they both decide to give it their all, and from such a colossal amount of energy, the girl simply screamed in fear. It was just an incredible battle. and so far we don't even understand which of them emerged victorious. But it turns out that Appa is still stronger. He said that the girl was just an excellent opponent, and he would like to fight with her again. If so, the girl cannot believe that he is actually offering another round in the battle. Of course he will do it. Meanwhile, our main character is simply tired of sitting and playing Monopoly with himself. What is he even doing here? While these two were still playing Monopoly, he just lay on the bed and thought about the fact that it was terribly awkward for him to just sit and play Monopoly with himself. Then they show us how the next day has already arrived, and someone tells the story of how she approached the man. The lady pretended to have already drunk a lot of drinks, and the guy immediately offered to play board games. The friends were simply shocked and wondered what she looked like. But the girl says that she didn't have anything unusual. She just dressed up well. Her friends said that a good outfit is the key to success. While all the ladies in the background stood and discussed their adventures, the guy just sat at the computer and thought that today it was too noisy at work since the very morning. While the girls were thinking that they could go and drink coffee, our main character was only thinking about the fact that it makes no difference whether you are a man or a girl, they will all do the same thing. Suddenly, a girl in a red sweater approached him and addressed him by the name Giante. The lady asked if he wanted coffee and wanted to ask him to go to the store. They would be very grateful to him. The boy simply could not refuse such a beautiful lady, in which case all the girls immediately began to place their orders as if he were some kind of waiter and not their colleague. Some time passed and he had already returned from the store, but the boy was not at all happy that he had become an errand boy. He was distracted by the conversation of the girls who were talking about the fact that if you do sports dancing, you can get simply excellent sports shape. They also said that you can dance with a man, and then feelings may appear, so to speak, killing two birds with one stone. The main character thought about sports dancing. Of course, he immediately remembers his neighbor who is also involved in sports dancing, and she was simply in excellent sports shape. It seems that he was inspired by the idea that if you do sports dancing, you can meet beautiful girls. The boy even imagined himself dancing with his neighbor and began to wonder how long she had been doing these dances because her athletic form was simply excellent. The lady gave him advice on how to dance correctly, and it was at that moment that feelings appeared between them. She simply asked how the main character was feeling during the dance, and it seemed like everything was just fine. Bomb was just a great dance partner. Since everything was already just fine, the blonde decides to simply move to the next level and perhaps start playing Monopoly. All the same, the lady complimented our Giante because he turned out to be just an excellent dancer. It's simply impossible to believe, because precisely because the boy learned to dance, he now has a girl with whom he can play Monopoly. Of course, all this was only in the thoughts of this loser. His friend tried for a long time to bring him to his senses, but he did not answer. The main character was simply shocked that his sunbai was already here. He was simply shocked that the guy was forced to run for coffee again. Had he really become an errand boy? And the main character turned out to have completely forgotten that he was supposed to bring coffee. If that's the case, he's going to leave quickly, but the sunbai didn't understand such a strange reaction and simply said goodbye. The girls were so glad that the boy still brought them coffee, but they are just going to give the money next time. Like a real loser, he agrees. Of course they are not going to give him anything. From his own anger, he simply begins to clench his fists, thinking about how pathetic he is, how he can even live like this. After which a simply brilliant plan comes to his mind. If suddenly he manages to learn sports dancing and changes his character, then no one will be able to humiliate him anymore. He decides to completely throw this shy boy into the trash and become a real Sigma, so after work he immediately found courses that taught sports dancing. The boy was simply shocked by himself because he could not understand since when he managed to become so decisive. Standing in front of the doors to the sports center, he thought that he was finally able to tune in to change. He was also inspired by the idea of just meeting a beautiful girl at these courses. Suddenly he heard strange sounds coming from the sports center, as if someone was playing Monopoly. It's simply impossible to believe. He decided to just open the door a little to see what was going on there, but fell into shock after seeing them doing what the hell was going on here. The next chapter begins with the fact that we are shown the very dances that the main character signed up for. A guy and a girl were dancing some kind of Spanish or Brazilian dance. While they were holding hands so cutely, the boy seemed disappointed because he expected that most likely they were playing Monopoly. While this handsome guy completed the final element of the dance, the coach said that this could be the end of the training. This guy turns out to be the teacher. He praised his student because her skills have improved greatly during this time. In response, she said that all this is due to the fact that she has such a talented teacher. This is real inspiration. Now the boy was so glad that he would also dance with such a beautiful girl like her. He wondered who she was because he had seen this girl for the first time. The main character simply walks into the room and awkwardly says that he would like to sign up for training with them. He was met by a girl named Yu Mion. She is the director of this place, and it is to her that the guy should apply. While the girl was saying that she was glad to meet you, the coach was surprised that the director was also here. And he was even more surprised that it was a man who came to their sports center. It seems that until that moment, there were only ladies there. While the main character was too embarrassed to admit that he also wants to dance, it seems that the coach saw him as his new opponent. He told his student that the lesson was over for today, and then turned to our boy saying that in order to engage in sports dancing, you need to have excellent physical fitness in order to hold your partner during the dance. If he did not have such data, then he simply could not study normally with them, but it seemed to the main character that he was speaking to him in a too humiliating tone. The lady said that she strongly trusts her teacher because he is a real giga-chad. The coach even laughed and thanked her for such a cool compliment. If so, the girl with red hair offers such a cool man like him to give instructions to a beginner. Maybe he can teach him something new. Now the main character was sitting in an office in which he had to indicate his personal data, and he was also asked if he had played sports before. Of course, that he was a typical Dota player who was heavier than a computer mouse and did not hold anything in his hands. Meanwhile, he just sat and thought in his thoughts that this girl was simply incredibly beautiful. Were all the girls in this center really like that? She looked at him strangely all this time and decides to say everything correctly, because he is still a bit of an unusual man. Now the main character's face has completely changed because he thought that he would not be accepted just because he had never played sports. Suddenly, she simply happily waved her hands and said that they would only be happy to accept a guy like him into their team. It seems that the main character expected a completely different answer and decided to ask the reason why he was accepted so quickly. But she said that despite the fact that he had never played sports, it was even good if he had strong motivation, he could achieve great success. The lady simply approached him too quickly and noticed that newcomers like him learn very quickly. But so far, our boy feels strange in this atmosphere and cannot believe what she is telling him. Of course, she tells him exclusively the truth, because their sports dances help not only improve physical fitness, but also raise their spirit. And it will also become much easier for him to meet girls because his self-confidence will increase. He will learn to understand everything that he needs, and also to understand what is required from his dance partner. But only now our boy feels even more strange than before. The girl with red hair simply whispered in his ear and asked if it wasn't good to learn new abilities. The girl also warned him that he could wait for special lessons with her, but so far the boy does not understand what she means by a special lesson. Ignoring his question, she simply asked if he agreed to study with them. It seems he has no way back, so he agrees. The last question was the price for the lessons, and the girl named the price at an unknown amount of 1. And then the guy's face completely changes, although we don't know how much it was in total, but it's clear that it was hard for him to cope with. She fully expected such a reaction, but the girl advises him to think again because the price is completely justified. This amount turns out to be much more expensive than he could even imagine, and now he doesn't know what to do. Still, he says that he will think for one day to make an exact decision. The girl lets him go and asks him to be sure to come again. The next day, the action is again transferred to the work of the protagonist, and once again he had to become a personal errand boy. The girls began to thank him for going to all of them for coffee today. Suddenly, some girl with green hair asked where her coffee was. Had the main character completely forgotten just her? Someone handed her a glass and said that he liked drinking lattes much better anyway, so she could take it. The girl began to really rejoice and immediately opened her wallet asking her to go and buy it.
Surprisingly, she even handed him a card with which he would make the payment.
In the next frame, we are again shown the main character who is thinking about the fact that he is a programmer and not a waiter. So why the hell does he constantly run to them for coffee? Every day the same thing. When suddenly his sunbae appears again and asks if he really decided to get hired as a coffee delivery boy today. Sunbae found this very strange because those ladies are absolutely nothing of themselves and also send one of the cool workers to stupidly run for coffee. In response, the main character simply laughed at this situation and said that this sometimes happens to colleagues and there's definitely nothing wrong with it. You can immediately see a real loser. But in his thoughts, the boy knew that he could only talk normally with the girls when he ran to get them coffee. Sunbae was terribly infuriated that he was being treated so badly, but he still tried to pretend that everything was normal. At the same time, in his thoughts, he said that he was already pissing himself off when suddenly Sunbae came up with a great idea. Perhaps the main character wants to add some variety to his boring life and go on a cool date. Of course, the boy was simply shocked by such a statement and could not believe that he would be able to go on a real date. It turns out that Hube was his friend. She had just the perfect man. A real good-natured man. Well, she was also just an incredibly beautiful girl. Our main character needs nothing more than the word beautiful girl and is ready to go on a date. He just started yelling that he really wants to go on a date as soon as possible and wants to be introduced to a girl. A strange reaction, of course, but Sunbae still agrees. Next, the actions are transferred to a cafe in which our boy was sitting with a girl. She found out that he was a programmer and admired him because he was very knowledgeable about hardware. The main character all this time thought that the girl was incredibly beautiful and tried to seem modest, saying that he was not so and master. Suddenly she notices the boy's strange behavior and asks why he was so embarrassed, or maybe he just didn't like the girl. The guy immediately starts waving his hands, saying that everything is completely wrong and the lady was very beautiful, he just never talked to girls. The lady immediately couldn't believe what the main character said. With his compliment, he lifted her spirits and they started drinking beer. While the girl was calmly drinking her drink, the main character began to notice that she was simply in excellent sports shape. Maybe she also plays sports. All that the main character wanted now was to play board games with her at least once, and the thought that he might finally have a girlfriend simply did not leave him. Further actions are transferred to the moment when he had already drunk too many drinks, and therefore decided to go to the restroom. He just had a terrible headache, and he couldn't understand why the hell everything was spinning before his eyes. Suddenly he heard some strange conversation about how the girl had quarreled with her boyfriend, so she immediately went on a date with another. It turns out that this is the same girl who came with him. Her name is Miso, and she was talking on the phone. The friend on the phone couldn't understand why he decided to do this, but it turns out that her boyfriend cheated on her. But the main character turned out to be kind, albeit with his own shortcomings. The boy just didn't represent anything and was a real loser. She didn't even want to play Monopoly with him. The boy heard all this and was simply shocked. The girl gradually stopped catching the net, and she asked her friend to wait until she came out, and the main character was standing there. Now he had to hide so that the girl wouldn't notice him, but what the hell was going on now? Next, we are shown how she continues to complain to her friend that all the guys terribly annoy her. Suddenly, a real jock of a GigaChad appears in front of us who noticed that lady. He instantly grabbed her hand and asked what the hell she was doing here. It turned out to be her boyfriend, and she couldn't understand how he knew where she was. He simply pushes her back into the room. Her friend told him everything, so they urgently needed to talk. All this time, she couldn't understand what the hell he was doing here. It turns out that he heard that she had a date here and decided to find her to figure it out. He decides to just start playing Monopoly in order to show who the real boss of this rocking chair is. He doesn't understand why the girl doesn't believe him, but she doesn't understand what the hell he's doing now. He just wanted to prove to her that he didn't cheat on her. It was all too strange for her, and she couldn't understand whether this idiot was really going to play Monopoly right in this cafe. Everything was exactly like that. He didn't care at all if suddenly someone decided to come. On the contrary, it would be more interesting to play Monopoly when they had spectators. But still, he reassures her by saying that in fact they were completely alone here, so they could play Monopoly as much as they wanted. The girl warned him that the guy she went on a date with was now in the restroom, but he thought that if he was smart, he would just leave. After which a full-fledged game of Monopoly begins, only Appa dealt too crushing a blow. He could not have played so seriously after all against the girl. He just gave his girlfriend a warning not to date other guys. That rumor about him cheating was a lie. He only liked one girl, and that was her. It seems that a couple of such phrases, and now she is in love with him again. She even said that she has never loved anyone as much as her Appa. Soon the game should have ended. The girl said that she also had no strength left, so it was possible to play in a draw. The guy simply asked if she liked this Monopoly game. In her opinion, the game was just great, but she didn't like playing in the restaurant at all. Maybe they should go to the hotel and continue their Monopoly competition there. Making the most serious expression on his face that I have ever seen in my entire life, he simply agrees with his girlfriend. And here our boy is just sitting in the next room and thinking about the fact that I can't do anything at all when I saw them. The main character is a real loser, an idiot and a moron. And then the full realization comes to him that he no longer wants to be a sucker. He urgently needed to change something in his life. Standing in the rain like Virgil, he tells himself that he is going to radically change so that such situations will never happen to him again. Then the actions are transferred again to that sports center. The main character was met by that girl with red hair and asked what happened to him because he looked just terrible. Finally, he was able to make a decision, and now he definitely wanted to sign up for dance classes. Of course, she was simply shocked by such a harsh statement and asked if he really wanted this. And then he begins to talk about how he is a terribly pathetic guy who is not even able to meet a girl. But right now, our boy is going to change and asks the director to help him with this. The girl just came up and hugged the guy, saying that apparently he had to go through a lot. While the main character was just standing in shock and didn't understand anything, the girl said that he was a real good guy and that everything would be fine with him. It seems that he needs support too much now, and so he decided to hug the director of this club. Well, of course, now the lady reminded him that he would need to pay for these courses, Now the cost doesn't bother him so much and the boy simply agrees anyway. He definitely has nothing to lose. He simply hands her an envelope with payment and says that it contains the full amount, and in such cases, the director promises to make every effort to train him. The events were postponed to the next day and all the girls warmed up in the gym. The main character was already there too and tried to do at least something. This idiot was just thinking that he also looked great in sportswear. But all those girls with whom he was in the same group looked strangely and whispered next to him. They thought that he was sick with something. He decided to turn on the tough guy mode and said hello to the ladies, but they just started praying to the gods for him to stop behaving so strangely. Next, our really cool trainer appears and asks for everyone's attention. Classes are already starting, so everyone had to choose a pair for themselves. All the group members had already found girls to dance with, but our main character was the only one left without a partner. That blonde who was his neighbor was also here, and was already dancing with some guy. The main character was surprised that he ended up in the same group with Bomb. Today they had to learn jive, which is one of the main types of dance that everyone should know. It was one of the 5 international Latin dances and also the most popular. He asked one of his students who already knew how to dance to demonstrate to the guys how to do it correctly. While the teacher was showing how to dance correctly, our boy just looked at his neighbor and thought that even today she looked just beautiful. Meanwhile, these two began to dance in earnest. It seems that the main character will definitely not be able to repeat such a dance. The demonstration performance was over, and all the students began to clap for their teacher because he is like a great dance master. While Bomb was also clapping for them, the boy was just thinking about how difficult it would be to do everything so that he could be in the same pair with his neighbor. But it seems that he is already late because she has already found a dance partner for a long time. The guys were just joking and fooling around with each other, but the main character was angry because he didn't understand why the hell he was communicating with her so calmly. Next, the coach announced that the intermediate group students would train together with their partners, but the beginner students would have to go with him. While everyone was gradually splitting up into couples, these two idiots were only thinking about the fact that they needed to find the most beautiful girls who were in this room as partners. Meanwhile, the coach took the newcomers and his student with him and asked them to repeat after them. He would tell everything in detail so that everyone could understand. The main character thought that he would now get an incredibly beautiful girl, but then she came to him. Even the boy agreed with me that he deserves more. No matter how hard he tried, he somehow managed to repeat after the teacher, but he also demanded that they gradually become faster. Now it's time to change your dance partner. Now this guy is starting to get angry. He just started dancing with her and thought that he was not at all happy that he got such a terrible partner. Although the next participant turned out to be far from better, well, look for yourself, she seems old enough to be his mother. But nothing can be done. Apparently it was fate that he would spend his entire life completely alone. While he was dancing with this lady, he was only thinking about dancing with Bomb. Meanwhile, the girl danced great along with another guy who clearly looked much cooler than the main character. Of course this upsets him, but the girl next to him seems only glad that she got such a handsome young man. He didn't even pay attention to his dancing partner, but simply swore that next time he would definitely dance with his neighbor. Evening had already come, and they showed us a lady who was clearly tired after such a hard day. The coach simply came up to her and said that the girl did a great job today, and even offered her a private lesson. Of course, she only happily agreed to such an offer. He took her hand and asked if those weeks of work were worth it, and she said that that new guy was constantly looking at her. In response, the coach simply gives a compliment, saying that she is very beautiful. That's why another student was looking at her, and at the same time in his head he thinks whether she understood what he said. The girl says that she already knows very well that she is the most beautiful here. She just didn't like him at all, so she found him strange. In such cases, the coach simply says that he will definitely look after her, of course, that along the way he will meet such losers as the main character. In response, she decided to hug her teacher and say that she completely trusts him. And then in his thoughts, he finally understands that all the efforts were not in vain. And while our manipulator tells the girl to trust only him, our video is coming to an end. Thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel and like so that the new part comes out as soon as possible.